Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Monday Night Raw Wrestling Inc. After Show, brought to you by HelloFresh. Spring has sprung, and the less time you spend in the kitchen, the better. That's why some of HelloFresh's delicious restaurant quality meals come together in just 20 minutes. Get 16 free meals plus 3 gifts with code INC16 at HelloFresh.com/INC16. Speaking of fresh, we got a fresh new Raw tonight. But before we dive into all that, I always like to ask how you fellas have been. Jimmy, how was your weekend?
It was a pretty good weekend. You know, the weather's been up and down here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. That's how you have to pronounce every town now. You pronounce the province and the city, the province, and then the country. Toronto, Ontario, like Calgary, Alberta, Canada, that sort of thing. But the weather's been up and down.
Lance Storm used to always say it.
Yes, exactly. Exactamundo, as someone used to say back in the day. But no, been good. Been hanging out, been watching, wrestling, trying to catch up on some stuff that I didn't get to see on Friday, and watch Raw tonight. And we're going to definitely talk about it.
Definitely got a lot going on. And Justin, any special news and notes from your weekend? Anything crazy happen?
Just kind of taking it easy. I'm clocking in here tonight with you boys. I'm clocking in Wednesday night with Jimmy and Issa after Dynamite, and then after that, I'm taking the rest of the month almost off. I'll be back in time for SummerSlam. So I'm looking forward to. I'm starting to get the tan, get the bronzer ready. I'm starting to get the bathing suits ready. I'm getting the flip flops out. I'm getting the tiki tunes to play some music. I'm getting set for my my July vacation. So I'm just kind of I'm in vacation prep mode right now.
I want you to come back with like the tan, but like except for where the sunglasses were. I want one of those. I want you to have one of those tans when you come back.
It'll be that, and it'll be that, and it'll be a big old white dome because I'll be having my hat on the whole time.
So that'll be a good look. I think you'll be able to pull that off. We got a big weekend coming up, though. You mentioned SummerSlam, or summer break and being back by SummerSlam, but we also got a big matchup coming. It has nothing to do with Raw, but it is a big one. Ric Flair getting in the ring one last time. Earlier this year, it was announced that the Nature Boy Ric Flair would be coming out of retirement for one more match. It was set to take place at StarCast 5 in Nashville, Tennessee over SummerSlam weekend. Originally, Ric Flair and FTR versus a mystery opponent in the Rock and Roll Express. That has officially changed, and now it's going to be, drum roll, Ric Flair teaming with his son-in-law Andrade El Idolo to take on Ric Flair's former TNA rival Jay Lethal and Nashville's own Jeff Jarrett. Obviously, lots of history between a lot of the people in this matchup. There's a lot of predictions coming into it. Jimmy, I know you are someone who's been around pro wrestling for a very long time. Someone else like Ric Flair has been around for a very long time. How do you feel about this matchup being the last hurrah, the last hoo-woo for Ric Flair?
I think it's very interesting. I'm glad that it's a tag team match, because knowing Ric Flair, if it was a singles match, he would go all out and try to do every single Ric Flair thing that he did over the past, 50 years or so, or whatever the career span was, including that top turnbuckle slam bump and everything. But no, I find it very interesting that he's going to team with his son-in-law to take on Jay Lethal. So basically we have Ric Flair, who's, I guess, pretty much an independent, teaming up with an AEW star to face another AEW star, and Jeff Jarrett, who is now has an office position and going to be the special referee in the tag match at SummerSlam. So you talk about forbidden doors. This is a real forbidden doors, and hats off and kudos to everybody involved for allowing this to happen.
It's like a forbidden patio. There's just all sorts of people just kind of coming and going, kind of hanging out on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds, it's made me want to check it out too, because, of course, before getting into pro wrestling, I was a big Ric Flair, especially because up here in Toronto, we used to get Mid-Atlantic Wrestling a lot, was a lot of the talent that Frank Tunney, Jack's uncle, used to get Mid-Atlantic talent. And I was a big Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, and Wahoo McDaniel and all those guys. So, like I said, my only main thing is I hope they are safe, they take care of him, and he goes out the way that makes him happy.
Yeah, Justin, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. When I was thinking about it and looking at the realistic who you could possibly get for this, it seems like a pretty good setup here. I mean, personally, I would have liked Sting, but I don't know how realistic that would have been. But how do you feel about these guys being the guys, considering what you actually have to work with here?
Well, like Jimmy said, I like that it's a tag match because I think Rick would have, he would have put so much pressure on himself if it was a singles match. There's something kind of, I guess, poetic, his newly illegal son-in-law, who, teaming with him, so a little family affair. I'm so torn in this, and I'll give you the stuff I like first. I like the fact, look, Ric Flair, I mean, he's arguably the greatest of all time, right? So, look, if he's going to have a last match, certainly the most poetic way for it to happen would have been at WrestleMania. He had that opportunity. We know that since he went back on that. So, I'm glad that they are at least, it looks like it's going to be at a pretty decent sized venue. It seems like tickets done well, obviously. The rest of the card, the undercard, is formidable. It's got a mix and got some talent from, again, more Forbidden Door, if we're going to use that term. So some not dream matches, but just, again, some crossover opportunity. They've been doing this documentary kind of building up to it. So I appreciate that they are really trying to decorate this up and make it as big of a deal as possible. It's going on after SummerSlam, a day after, so it's capping off a weekend of having a lot of wrestling fans in town. Here's my worry. I watched the video that they put out in the announcement, and if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Obviously, you know how it ends, with the matches that they're going to eventually get to. But basically, there's a pivotal point of, Jay Lethal, who's been training with Ric Flair, wants to be part of the show. Ric Flair basically says, you're not big enough. We're trying to stack this card. You're a first match kind of guy. And Jay Lethal starts to beat the crap out of him in a parking lot, very old school kind of feel. Then Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett see it. They try to stop Jay, but then Rick doesn't want Jeff's help and is MF and Jeff. So then Jeff unleashes on, and then they just, bloody Ric Flair. The Crockett's there. He's trying to separate it. They're shoving Crockett aside. Knowing what we know about Rick, he's 73 years old, he has a pacemaker, he's had some life-threatening. I couldn't help but just feel like I felt uncomfortable. Now, maybe that's how I'm supposed to feel. Maybe when push comes to shove, when July 31st comes, that's what's going to get me to pay the money or do whatever it is to see this. Maybe. But I also just part of me was just like, I'm uncomfortable. And then I can't help but think, because again, Ric Flair, and I ask both you guys this, he's probably in better shape than your average 73-year-old, sure, right? He can train and prepare for this, and the other three guys can try their best to protect him, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will map this out as best they possibly can. But we all know it is live television, and I think for the greatest ever, Taker, Kane, Shawn, Triple H, they did that tag match a few years ago in Saudi, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. H gets hurt, Kane's mask is falling off. It was just train wreck, and so I just worry what happens if this match falls apart or subpar to Rick's standard or to or God forbid if social media blasted and Rick's gonna have another last match. I don't see him, and then I just get worried again, and I don't know. So I'm so torn. I'm intrigued, which is what they want, and they've put a lot of work into this. I appreciate Conrad and the group doing the storyline, putting backstory, and not just plucking out random names from a generator. So I appreciate all the effort, but I can't help but say I feel uncomfortable and worried. Really, I do.
It is kind of tough because I've always tried to take the road of it's up to them. I'm not going to try to babysit or make decisions for them. But there's that little party that's like, you are getting a little bit up there. Because again, I'm not the athlete, so I don't feel like it's fair for me to say yes or no. But at the same time, I'm like, you are you are getting up there though. So it is a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time, the idea of possibly seeing Ric Flair's last match live, I don't know how, if you're there, I don't know how you don't buy a ticket to this. This is now, and this is coming from a guy who would have sworn up and down. I saw Sting's last match when he was in TNA at Bound for Glory. I was like, I'm going, baby. I got to see this. I want to be at Sting's last match. And even though you're right, Justin, there's a very good possibility that next year he could be like, tickets did pretty good for that last match. Maybe we should do last match part 2.
And maybe he gets Sting next year, or look, I don't know, who knows, or who knows which WWE talent could be a free agent by that point next year with the turnover and the way, and who knows what potential would be there from somebody from the WWE world. I mean, that's what I mean. It's just it's I don't know. It's and I mean, yeah, I mean, look, it's his last match, but we all know money is money in the wrestling business, and if last match draws,
and not only that, like you said, Justin, he will want to go out the way he wants to go out, and if he felt that was not when this match is over with, that wasn't the right way for Ric Flair to end that iconic career, then there probably will be that pressure inside him to say, listen, I got to go out the right way. I got to go out feeling good about how I did it.
Right. And that's the trick indeed. So we did get a super chat while we're talking. Robert Martinez asked, do you feel like the storytelling wrestling is coming to an end, tired of different variations of the same wrestlers? I don't know. I think, and I'll let, and Jimmy, I want you to get your thoughts on this because you've seen it all. I feel like it's changing. I don't know if it's coming to an end, but I think like most things, much like music, it's different. I don't think music ended, but what are your thoughts on that?
I see, where he's coming from, where he's saying that characters from the past are kind of recreated and reinvented and presented in a different way. That's just the way the business has been, like Ric Flair, you could say, is a knockoff of Gorgeous George, and just a different version of that. That's how the business has been since day one, just the evolution of characters. But the storytelling in wrestling is, there's two things. There's storytelling in a match and storytelling for an actual angle or so forth. I think to Robert's point, the storytelling in matches to some degree is getting lost because it feels like a lot of the talent is more concerned about getting their stuff in and getting that huge pop for a reaction for the move, as opposed to, sometimes slowing things down, telling a story in a match that people can get invested in. And to that point, I agree with it. But as far as characters and different variations of the wrestlers, I'm okay with it as long as it's a recreation and reinvention and an evolution of a character.
Yeah, there's an old saying in entertainment, whether it's movies, television shows, music, everything's been done, and everything is just who can recreate, who can make what's old is new again and put just that small little touch from something else, and then all of a sudden it looks like a brand new idea, or it looks like a wow, what a I don't want to say reboot, but what a resurge or re-energize of that genre or what have you. And that's all it is. I mean, that's again, we could play a game. We could literally go down every wrestler we talk about tonight on Monday Night Raw. We could literally say that wrestler and then name the 2 origin points before them of who it seems like they are borrowing from or inspired by. And that's just the nature of everything. You can ask any movie star, who did you look up to get into film? Ask any band who made you. I mean, that's just natural. I'm sure Jimmy has a referee that he saw that, so that's just how it is. Now
that you said it, Tommy Young, I hope Tommy Young referees that match.
And Tommy Young's in that video that I was just referencing, the big video building to this match.
Yeah, there's actually a YouTube series, I believe, called Everything's a Remix. I think it's a few years old, so it might be a little outdated, but it literally goes through like TV shows and movies and things that y'all like. It takes Star Wars and breaks down how everything's been like everything in there is even copied and all this other stuff. And it's very interesting to see. I heard one time that they said if you can make something 20% different, then it's enough to call your own. And I don't know. I like that because it's easier to just steal stuff. Why not? When I run for president, that'll be the clip that gets
borrow.
Yes. Well, let's get into the show. Before we do, as always, I always like to say thank you so much to everyone who's listening on the Apple Podcasts or Spotify or watching along on YouTube, whether you're here live or watching it later. If you're watching it later, hit the like button, subscribe, share. We crossed 100,000 subscribers, by the way. I just heard. I think it's because of us 3 specifically that we got over 100,000. I mean, sure, there's tons of people who have put in countless hours to get here, but I kind of feel like it's us 3. Did it.
The Triple J movement.
The Triple J.
Speaking of stealing things,
We grabbed the baton and we crossed that finish line.
Right, we got over the 1 yard line. That's we were the ones that did it.
We were the fullback that jammed it in. All right.
Yes. So thank you to everyone who's watching live, by the way, whether it's Sergio or David or Tox or Dylan. Acknowledge Jack Farmer's birthday week. It's my birthday week. Happy birthday to me. We got new NYC Demon Diva saying, bye, Farmer. What? No, it's me. You were on TV today, weren't you? You got a shout out. Was I mistaken? Did I see you in one of those packages tonight? We also had a Zook Enigma who I saw said was at the show. Let us know how the show is there. But we got Ryan and Rocky, and we got Jax, and we've got Lee and RYN and No Bueno crew and Night One and Jeff Lopez and so many more. Thank you so much for joining us in the chat. It's always appreciated having you guys hanging out while we chat. Let's talk about this show. Sure. Let's get into it. We start with a promo that I think caught a lot of people off guard. It was Titus coming out, and it was kind of a feel-good promo talking about WWE and what it's all about and putting smiles on faces and having a good time. And then he says straight up, we don't talk about politics or religion. Justin, I always like to give you these tough questions. What was this promo really all about?
I couldn't help, and Titus is a great ambassador for them. He's a great, he's so well spoken. I know him very well. I think very highly of him. So they had an opportunity tonight, and they took it. Titus is from Tampa. He does a ton of work in the community. Even when he's not in Tampa, when they're traveling around, he does a ton of this ambassador work. So this is all. So they had a very front-facing, easy. Oh, it makes sense for us to put Titus out there. I couldn't help but say that while what Titus is saying, he's saying it with conviction. It just had this feeling of. There's just a lot of controversy right now. There's a lot of. It just kind of felt like in the same vein as Vince strutting out there just to say then now forever, just to kind of maybe stick it to critics or stick it to speculations. This kind of had that same feel of we're going to go out there, we're going to tout we are WWE and there's nothing else like us in entertainment, which that is true. There's nothing else like it. But but doing the and again, there's a lot of negative news going on. Gas is nuts, violence is crazy, racial unsettling. I mean, it does feel like we are at a very crazy place, even more so than ever in the world right now. And it just felt like a WWE opportunity to go out there and tout and toot horn. And again, some of what they said, they are there to put smiles on face. They are there. You buy a ticket, you are supposed to forget about whatever problem you might be dealing with that day and just enjoy these characters and enjoy the comedy and the entertainment. But it just definitely had a layer, a subtext layer of we have a chance to send our Tampa resident and ambassador out there. Let's go out there and just stick it to. That's just kind of how it felt. I got to be honest. I'm just listening to this. I'm like, this feels like there's a subtext to this.
Yeah, it's tough because and for me, just as he was talking, like I kind of got it. Like as soon as he started, like I get it. We're trying to put the positive vibes out there, and there are positive vibes to be sent out from WWE. To be totally fair, but then like the very specific, we're not going to talk about certain things. Felt like, oh, you didn't need to say that though. You could like it was kind of implied. You didn't need to just put it out there though.
Yeah, and to the point of that, Jimmy. Like I mean, I know that like they. It is weird when you are actually going to spell it out and say, we don't talk about politics.
Right.
When you have a former president who's a Hall of Famer who's on a WrestleMania highlight reel several times. When I forget what Linda's title once was. She president. Right. When she's had millions invested in a political career and then had a cabinet position. It's like, you might not talk about politics on Raw, but don't act like you were completely cut off from the political world. That just kind of sounds very tone deaf to say that.
No, I think they're talking from a presentation standpoint of WWE to their fan base. I think that's what they were talking about. And I totally agree with everything that you said, Justin, about this thing. It felt like it had an undertone to it, but at the same time, it felt like a little bit of a reminder that we have gotten away from what this business is supposed to be. Not only is it supposed to be there to make money for those who are creating the product for us to watch. It's also, like you said, an escape for us to watch television, to get invested in characters, to have fun. It's supposed to be fun. And not only that, WWE being there and seeing it live does give back to the community. So yes, there is some controversial stuff that's going around right now that they are dealing with. And maybe, yes, the timing could be suspect on this, but I think they're reminding people that despite all that stuff that people are talking about, there is some good that this company does for people. And I've witnessed it. I've seen it. And I'm glad they continue to do it. And Titus O'Neil is just awesome. Like, if you wanted a goodwill ambassador, there's nobody better.
Yeah, and again, don't get me wrong. I'm not negating that WWE's done a lot of positive. I mean, John Cena making record, which I mean, I was in the room when Connor met Daniel Bryan for the first time. You're like, it pulls at your heart. Like, I'm not negating that, but it's all timing. And it was just the timing of, like, we're 2 weeks out for SummerSlam, and we're gonna use the opening 5 minutes to do a PR reminder.
Sure.
But I will say this: it's a branding thing, and I know Vince is obsessed with marketing. I don't hate. I mean, they're like 40 years behind SNL at this point, but I don't hate them doing like this is Monday. I mean, I don't mind the branding of what different characters can you get in a context to announce the start of the show. Actually, I don't hate that as again, corny as that might sound, but
that actually grew on me a lot too. At first I was like, oh no, don't do this. But now to the SNL point, it has kind of grown on me, that whole like live from New York, it's Saturday night, or it's kind of grown on me. But yeah, I love Titus. In fact, every time he's on, I always wonder why he wasn't a bigger force in wrestling as a wrestler. I mean, he's doing so much great stuff now, but like today, I was like, this guy just has like like even the crowd felt like, oh no, we're gonna listen to this guy. We're not gonna what him or like cheer. Like when he was talking, people was like, okay, we're gonna shut up and listen. Like, like, in a good way, not like I don't care, shut up, but like
no, like, exactly. He has that thing that just draws you in. You know what I mean? He's got that magnetism.
Yeah,
magnetic appeal, whatever you want to call it, and he's a good dude. And when you hear him speak, you feel it, you know it, you see it, you sense it.
Yeah, so it's cool. He's doing great things though, and doing good things. So it's just nice to know he's out there doing good stuff. It's a little weird opening, but I guess it is good to know that the WWE is. If we put all that stuff aside, at the end of the day, it's good to know that they're doing good stuff out there, and some people are benefiting. And we even saw some like kids are going to get backpacks later in the night and stuff like that. I think that's a cool thing.
Yep.
Let's get into the I guess what I'd call the true start of the show when we get the actual wrestling. This was a lot of stuff happened all at once, but Becky Lynch comes out and she reminds us of what she's already done by saying some pretty fun Bex Express lines and rhyming train innuendo. Is it innuendo? Or I don't know what the right word for that is, but you know what I mean. And she's getting a title shot at SummerSlam for whoever wins tonight. Bianca says that this isn't the Becky Lynch comeback story. This is the Bianca Belair comeback story. And Carmella says she's going to be the champ. So they have a match right after Becky Lynch hits a manhandle slam. And the match is all about that there's no champion's advantage. And even though it looks like there might be some times Carmella's going to get the win, eventually we get Bianca Belair with the win, and that means at SummerSlam, it's going to be Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Jimmy, like I said, a lot of stuff happened. There's a lot of storytelling, as we talk about storytelling, to get to the actual match, even in the match. How did you like the setup of the match before we get into like the SummerSlam stuff?
I was okay with it, but it just felt so generic, for lack of a better term. We're seeing too often, I think, at least in WWE, where someone comes out to ringside to sit ringside, and a lot of times join the announce table, and somewhere along the lines there's going to be some kind of a distraction, involvement, that sort of thing. I think that's happening a little too often now. But as far as the storytelling of the match, the fact that they took away the count out would save the champion's title if they were to be counted out, that being negated, so that if the champion was counted out, they would lose the title. I thought they did that storytelling well in trying to tease Bianca getting counted out and having Becky even maybe get involved a little bit. But from that standpoint, I enjoyed it. I didn't. Was it necessary? I guess after last week, it was a continuation, at least that. we can hang our hats on and say, yeah, at least they're continuing from last week.
Justin, and again, we'll kind of circle back to do what this means for SummerSlam and all that. But I was a little bummed out because I've actually been enjoying Carmella in this situation. I'm hoping she's not out of the title picture, or at least out of TV or whatever the case is. But maybe this is me just overthinking it. But if Becky wanted to cost Bianca Belair the situation, she could have just punched Carmella and gotten Becky gotten the DQ.
Yeah, no, it's you're right. That's just kind of where you
suspend.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But overall, I'm okay with this. I like this Becky Bianca story because I like the fact that it comes full circle. I like the fact that it started at SummerSlam last year under what was controversial. I mean, I remember fans really reacting very WTF. And now here we are a year later, and it kind of, whether it was on purpose, or at least they can say it was on purpose now, it kind of like explains that, like, okay, that's why she lost in 26 seconds. We had to let the story come around and her win the title back. And, so I like that. I mean, I like whether it was intentional or not, it's long-term storytelling is how you can look back at it. And I'm always in favor of that.
And to follow up on that, it felt like they kind of telegraphed how this match was going to go pretty early on, but I don't think we would have been surprised anyways. That said, though, Justin, could either of these women survive a loss at SummerSlam? Because they can't have a rematch, but like, what do they do if they don't? I feel like they've been so tied into the world title picture for so long. Can either of them afford, without saying draft them somewhere else and go to another title? Can they survive a loss at SummerSlam?
I mean, I think both can survive. They're both former champions. They're both over like Rover, respectively, in their roles. So I do think that whichever one of them loses, you probably do need to move them to the other show for a little bit just to freshen up. I just, because you're right, I don't know what I don't know what would be after that if they remained on Raw. So yeah, I could see that. I'm not even gonna say draft, because at this point the lines are so blurred. you don't need a hall pass. You don't need anything to skip over to the Friday night room, so to speak. So or the Monday night room. So yeah, but I think both will be fine. It's just it's more or less a matter of how does it happen. You can't have Becky beat Bianca in 26 seconds again. Nor do I think in a match, remember, obviously the Bianca Becky last year at SummerSlam was a surprise. Boom, surprise. This is an advertised, marquee match. It's going to be a pillar holding up this stadium show. So you can't have Bianca return the favor or beat Becky in 26 seconds. So I think how it gets done is key. Does Carmella play a factor in there to keep her in the mix? But that's the key, is how is it done? Either can lose and they'll be fine, but it's how it's done.
Yeah, Jimmy, any thoughts on this rivalry? It seems to be coming to it feels like a lot of long-term rivalries coming to an end at SummerSlam, but I guess we'll probably have a prediction of some kind next week. But any thoughts on how this is getting to where they're getting?
I find it very interesting. I love the long-term storytelling of it, like Justin said, and it's coming full circle. And as far as whether someone could survive a loss in this match, again, I hate to sound like Captain Agreeable, but it all depends on how the match is presented and how the finish is presented. You can get over without going over, as some people say, and you can absolutely do that because both of these women are over. And again, in the presentation of the match, depending on how they get into the finish and who goes over and how they go over, the other one can still survive. But also it does help to refreshen them a little bit, whoever's losing this match.
Yeah. And I mean, by the way, when I say can they survive, I don't think they're going to get like released because there's nothing for them. I don't know if I would be that engaged with it. With all due respect, I don't know if I'd be that engaged with the Bianca Belair versus Nikki ASH rivalry, because Bianca Belair
the 24/7 title,
such a high mark. Yes.
Sorry.
Oh well, if we're putting the title on the line, yeah, of course I'm all in for that. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out. But we do continue on, and we get the guy who I think can take just any jumble of stuff, talk about it, and somehow find a way to get to what he's trying to say. And that's Kevin Owens, who has the KO show. Real quick, I guess, production note. I love that they had the camera behind him as he walked out. I thought that was a cool new angle that made it feel a little like, oh, we don't see that every day. But KO, he starts talking about Riddle being calm, and now he's over Zeke, and maybe we should be a tag team, and Randy Orton's terrible. And then it leads to a Seth Rollins beatdown of Riddle. Again, and Jimmy, I'll circle back to you on this. Kevin Owens just finds a way to make sure he hits every single beat along the way and somehow end up where he needs to be.
The thing about Kevin Owens is he's so good at just making the best of whatever he is given to do. And, you hear people complain about, well, they gave me this and I didn't feel it. Doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter to Kevin Owens. You give it to him, he's going to make it work because he that's the kind of guy he is. Mm-hmm. You talk about the scripted promo and all that stuff and everybody complaining about that sort of thing. Kevin Owens makes everything, regardless of whether it's scripted or not, you can't tell because it feels so Kevin Owens. So it doesn't matter. And it's enjoyable. He gets you invested. And if it's him trying to get the next story over with other people, he's brilliant at doing that as well.
Justin, are we ready to see Kevin Owens move on from Zeke?
Well, I think so. I don't know if they envision the night after Mania that the whole Zeke thing and would be going this. But I mean, the fans don't seem like they've completely dropped off of it. So, but, to expand upon what Jimmy said, to KO's credit, he has gotten himself into the class that you want to be in, which is, like you said, he has his own voice. And I think part of that is his natural talent on the mic that he always had, and it's just continuing to shine. And maybe he's getting, I don't know, who knows how the process for his promos work? Who knows how much of a script he's getting? Who knows if he's giving a little more freedom to choose his words? But I think also look, this guy main evented a WrestleMania with Stone Cold Steve Austin this past year. He has been elevated in the minds of the crowd, and that's obvious. Just as soon as those opening riffs of his music hits, people get up on their feet, ready to react. Some like to cheer him because they think that he's just so good, so entertaining at being an obnoxious ass. Mm-hmm. Some think that he's just the bad guy they can't wait to give the middle finger to, and that's all you can ask for is the reaction. And so I think the fact that he has really been elevated into a class. You talk about who's still active in there today. Obviously, even Roman Reigns has moved into a lighter schedule. Roman's music hits, reaction beyond belief. Mm-hmm. Randy Orton's music hits, reaction beyond belief. Mm-hmm. AJ gets it to an extent. Obviously, the Cenas, the Brocks. In terms of the full time there every week, guys, KO is right there in terms of that riff hits. Nobody's on their phone. Nobody's going to the bathroom. They're engaged with seeing KO.
Yeah, I kind of giggle for a second when I think about the fact that Stone Cold came out of retirement to have a final match before Ric Flair came out of retirement to have a final match, and that just shows how long Ric Flair's going. But to your point about KO, I think because he's just so unpredictable and because he just buys in so much to everything he does. I've been thinking about this, and I think Butch is great because Butch just goes all in on what he's doing. I think Max Dupree is great because he's just going all in on what he's doing. I find these guys that just go all in on who they are and what they're doing, to the point of the scripted or whatever. Those guys always seem entertaining. Like when they just say, I'm just going to go as much into it as possible and not kind of hold back or try to finesse it in some way. And just, I'm going to be this guy. And I don't know, he's great. I don't know. I feel like nothing from that is going to really play out long term. I think it was just kind of a segment for the sake of the segment, but it was entertaining.
But the line that got me too is bro KO.
Bro KO. Yes, I could imagine people chanting that. By the way,
yes,
bro KO. Bro KO. I thought they were actually going to tag team for a second. I was thinking, what, this might actually happen.
I'm almost hoping for it. I really hoping for it.
Oh, how big of a moment would it be if we saw the moment, they team for a while and then KO is about to turn on Randy on Riddle, and then Randy Orton saves him and hits the RKO on KO instead? I'd lose my mind. But cool. We've got we move on. We get a few Judgment Day bits happened here. Damian Priest reminds us that they beat up Edge. And then, by the way, Graves made a comment. He says he thinks that Finn Balor may have seen it 3,000 times like we all have, which I thought was kind of an interesting comment by Corey Graves there. They guarantee Dom's going to join the Judgment Day. The story of the match here is that Finn gets involved and Dom stops him before Rey Mysterio is about to hit his finish, but he gets reversed and we get a razor's edge. I can't remember what Damien calls it when he does it, but post-match, this is the best part. There's a beat down and Dom says, fine, I'll join. And they said, nah, that's not how it works, kiddo. And they beat him up anyways. Justin LaBar, you said that there's no way that Dom could be joining Judgment Day. It looks like you're right. And as I see it play out, I thought that was the perfect way for this to end. Take your victory lap. You kind of predicted it.
Well, up to this point, yeah. I mean, we're still. I mean, if Dom's going to turn on his father, what better way to say I do it? The cool kids, the gothic kids, whatever they reject him. But then it happens the following week when it's Dad's 20-year anniversary in the mecca of sports entertainment. So I'm not going to take a victory lap just yet. If I'm on vacation next week and my phone starts blowing up for the opposite, then I'll know why. But I mean, I like
from me.
Yeah, from Jimmy. Yes, if I see Jimmy text me on Monday night, then I'm gonna know what just happened. But
you're not gonna watch it while you're on vacation.
No, probably not. I mean, if happenstance would be that I end up in front of a TV for a minute and I see, but I plan to be near the sand and the evening breeze.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nonetheless, I like the business that happened here. I mean, obviously, this seems like it's pointing towards an Edge return next week. You know, there's a lot of mention of Edge tonight, a lot of antagonizing from Priest on the microphone, reminding what they did to Edge. I got to say again, Priest and making that entrance, and he cuts the promo. The purple lighting's backlit on him. He's got the gothic ring gear. I mean, you know, he just looks and sounds the part. I don't know because of the Mysterio mix factor, but damn, I would love to see Priest versus Edge for SummerSlam. I kind of hope that's. I just think that's the biggest thing that could happen for anybody involved in this realistically. You know?
And Jimmy, to that point, it's kind of shocked me that when Finn joined, it felt like Finn was going to be the new leader, but it feels like as we're watching this, Priest feels like the leader as we're watching this.
Yeah, it's interesting because they kind of set it up that there is no real leader, that everyone in the group is equal. But as you said, Priest is really starting to stand out in this thing. And if I can make a comparison to another company where you had MJF and Wardlow together, and Wardlow started to break out and become. This is what's happening with Damian Priest right now. He's starting to break out. He's starting to find himself. He's starting to get into a groove and a comfort zone, and it's starting to show. And he's really, really taking advantage of it. And to your point, that would be awesome to see Edge versus Priest at SummerSlam. That would be kind of cool.
Priest has become that sneaky guy of always having great matches, by the way. We always say like AJ Styles always has great matches. Priest is kind of becoming that guy too, where because I can't remember last time I was like, that was kind of weak. Like they're always great. He always has bangers.
I will say though that because they kicked Edge out and I guess Rhea sidelined with injury. I feel like they do need to add somebody else to the group because I have a hard time for them trying to call themselves Judgment Day and more of a group cult mentality when I just see Finn and Priest standing next to him, I'm like, this just seems like it's an oddball tag team. Yes, you're matching in purple and black. Yes, you're coming out the same music, so there's synergy there, but I do need a group feel to it. So I don't know. I kind of hope it, depending on what Rhea's timeline is and whatever else, if a Mysterio is going to join, I don't know. But I do feel like there needs to be a strength in numbers for the cult like groups. That's always been the fact. That's you can
right.
look at any Ministry of Darkness, Wyatt family, Dark Order, any of them on all ends of the spectrum. You need strength in numbers for the cult effect.
So we talked about Edge a few times because they brought up Edge multiple times. They definitely let us know that Edge is on their mind still. But we also saw more of those Edge videos. I just call them the Edge videos because I feel like it's so apparent at this point. I don't know who else could be. But he did write this time, I'm coming too. And then we didn't see where it is. So, Jimmy, I want you to give me your prediction. Where are we going to see Edge pop up? Is it SummerSlam, or you think he's going to put something else on that mirror?
I think we possibly see him at Madison Square Garden next week at the MSG show. Maybe he's the one who, I think maybe a little surprise for that tag match that they've announced of Dom and Ray versus Finn. And they announced it, did they, for next week? Or is that for SummerSlam? Wait a minute.
I think it's for next week.
I think it's for next week at the Garden, right?
Yeah, we got Ray and Dom later backstage in the locker room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that he may make his presence felt next week at MSG.
We will see. Anything, and just anything you saw from this new video that was worth taking away? I just feel like more souvenirs.
Yeah, but there was a little bit more of the goth feel towards the end with him writing in blood. And when I think when you think blood and the whole video showing the timeline of Edge's career, blood's where it started with the Brood. So I can't help but feel like we're gonna have the tag match again. Whether Dom actually does turn and joins Judgment Day, or whether again it's just Judgment Day just getting ready to concerto and just circling the wagon, so to speak. That then the video is going to play. We're going to see I'm coming to. It's going to be whatever it is, and then we're going to see the entrance of a repackaged Edge, whatever version that is. Whether it's him pulling from his Brood roots, whether it's something completely new. But I don't feel like we're just going to get rated at our superstar. I feel like the point of this is like maybe like a full circle. Like he started in the Gothic world, just got kicked out of Judgment Day. He needs to revert back to those roots to combat this monster that he created in Judgment Day. That's kind of where I'm feeling, is that we're going to get kind of a return to roots, and that's why we're writing in blood. And we're seeing the what do they call it? The cup, the chalice, the
chalice of
chalice.
The
So
Gangrel.
That's what it feels like to me. Is kind of we're going to go back to our roots.
It would be cool if Gangrel came with him too, just for funsies.
Yeah.
We do get and we got a couple super chats. Let's knock these out real quick. But Michael Martinez says, I feel like WWE is getting uneventful and effortless. Example, Omos versus Dawkins, 24-hour belt. Becky Bianca 3. Seems AEW has a more fresher feel to it. Is that just me?
Michael, it's 3 hours every week. I mean, AEW has the luxury of to what Jimmy says on Wednesday night, 10 pounds and 5 pound bag. And they're down to the wire, sometimes going over by a few seconds. WWE's got 3 hours on Monday. That's just and then 2 other hours to fill on Friday, and then a premium live event every 4 weeks. I mean, that's just a lot to have to fill. And I'm not saying that the effort doesn't sometimes feel lazy or redundant, because sometimes it does, but I think there's a fair balance that has to be kept in mind. Of you could put on a banger 3-hour show, like we really could, if you wanted to get crazy, especially when you have all the kind of big names that come around for the big shows like a SummerSlam. You can get crazy and put on a month, 6 weeks worth of that well is still going to run dry. It's inevitably going to, when you have to then also satisfy talent. If a Roman Reigns comes in and says, I'm not working so now you got to balance, okay, well, we don't want him for Raw and Tampa tonight, but we need him for Raw and MSG next week. So you don't have a Roman factor to have that tonight. You got to deal with Cena. Cena's going to do this. You got to deal with this person. Cody Rhodes was a huge investment. Yeah. He got hurt. That's the nature of the beast. So now he's out until probably January. So there's just so many factors. If you could write the perfect show, and then 5 other things that are out of your control can just come in, and USA Network says you're not ending with pick something else that we do. You're not ending with that. Miz and Mrs. are doing great ratings. We need them. We need Miz and Logan Paul with his 24 million Instagram followers to lead into that at 11 o'clock. We put a lot of money into that marketing campaign. All right, so now you got to write Miz and Logan Paul to end Raw, even if that wasn't what I'm saying is, Michael, there are so many factors that the 3 of us don't have to deal with day to day, that it is a job that is a tall task.
Yeah, and live production is a madhouse, and I can only imagine it at that level of the WWE. Jimmy, you could probably speak to it, but just because you're also having to set everything up and get everything there and pack it up at the end of the night, not to mention all the planning stuff. But yeah, things happen, things change, people go over, and now you need to cut things down. People go short, now you need to add things on. And I'm just going to say, if you remember the Attitude Era, Stone Cold and Undertaker had a match like every day. It felt like for a long time too. I mean, I loved it, but it's not like this is a new thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, like to Justin's point, it's not trying to cram as many people on television. I will say this about AEW. AEW does put on an exciting product. They're very action packed, and they really, really delve into satisfying their core audience. And some people could argue that their one drawback is they're focusing too much on that audience and not trying to expand their audience by giving them a little diversity, some variety. WWE is giving you a little bit of everything, and sometimes they're giving you a little bit too much of a variety. Let's put it that way. But like, again, to Justin's point, 3 hours of television on a Monday night, 2 hours on a Friday night. You've got a lot of talent that you have to satisfy, but at the same time, you can't make everybody a main eventer. There is upper card, mid card, and others that don't fall as high on the I want to say evolutionary scale, but that's not the right term. But you know what I'm trying. You know what I'm trying to say here. There is a place for everybody, and eventually, mid carders will get elevated to a top level, and vice versa, and they have to move back in the card and stuff like that. And sometimes you're going to hit homers, sometimes you're going to hit singles, sometimes you're going to strike out. Just the nature of the business.
And, it's one thing that you can keep it fresh, but I have a feeling that if you had 3 hours of Bianca Belair versus Nikki ASH, and again, no disrespect to Nikki ASH, but eventually you're going to go, okay, I get it. I know how this is going to end. You can only have local talent versus world champion so many times before you go, I don't need to see this, So
and WWE, it's a double-edged sword, because even though their TV viewership is lower than what it really has ever been, but there's a lot of, look, they touted tonight. We're touting 100,000 subscribers here on Wrestling Inc. on YouTube. WWE show that did fact they got 70 billion YouTube views, more than, and they named the 7 other entities combined. WWE is at the double-edged sword of the fact that yes, their viewership on TV is lower than it's ever been, and people are using other mediums to consume it. But even still, even as low as the lowest of the 3 hours is, the viewership for that lowest third hour is still higher than anything else USA is going to do for weekly programming. Like, USA doesn't have a hockey playoff game to have every single week, so they could run Law and Order, they could run Modern Family, they could run whatever else they have in syndication. Nothing is going to get 1.7 million people to tune in of original content. No repeat here. Not a show that we all have seen before, but so like that's WWE's double-edged sword. I think some people in WWE, they wouldn't say this on the record. In fact, I know they won't say this on the record, but there are some people in WWE that would say, yeah, I kind of wish Raw was just 2 hours. We only had to produce 2 hours, but they understand that because they do have such a loyal fan base, even if some of that fan base has dropped off on traditional TV medium, it's still better than anything else USA is going to have that USA is already paying for anyways. So USA is not going to trim it down to 2 hours. Now, maybe WWE, when they renegotiate in a couple of years and they say, look, we only want to go 2 hours. I don't know, but probably not, because that means it's probably going to, that's then a case for USA to counter and say, all right, well, we're paying you less money if you're going to give us less content. Well, we're not, WWE's not going to take less money. So it's such a double-edged sword of WWE is so embedded with their fan base and culture that they're being asked to do more. And by result, it can water the product down because of all the factors we've just talked about.
Yeah, it's, and they would go 4 hours if a USA paid them more, I'm sure. But Steven also adds into the chat, bigger match, Bianca versus Nikita Lyons or Raquel Rodriguez? Also, is Cross a better fit in AEW or WWE once again? I'd like either of those matches for Bianca. Jimmy, any thoughts on Bianca potentially having a match with either of them, or Cross going to AEW or WWE?
Well, which match would be bigger? I don't know which one would be bigger. Like you said, they'd both be good. I don't know. I'm partial to her versus Raquel. I think that has more mainstream appeal, I think, possibly. As for Cross, I mean, people say, is he better fit in AEW or WWE? For me right now, AEW is jam-packed. It's for them, it's trying to find room for everybody there. And that's the problem why we talk about they try to cram 20 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag every week on television. Yes, it might be exciting television, but still it's a lot to digest. And Killer Cross might get lost in the shuffle in that regard. If WWE utilizes him to his full potential, obviously that could be a good place for him again. But where he would be a better fit, again, depends on which company utilizes his efforts best. And I can't tell you which one it would be right now.
Yeah, I'm partial to Raquel as well, and Yeah, I mean, I'm just Cross. I think so much about Cross. It was so hard. The presentation, and in NXT, obviously, especially the presentation, the entrance, the music cues. It was so captivating to think he never got to do it in front of a live audience. He did, he did it in front of the staged audience, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I just think like every example, maybe the exception of Adam Cole, and his is because it's so fan interactive and he's so over. Every guy that's had a really cool entrance when they went to AEW, yeah, they might be getting more freedom, but like Malachi Black, Aleister Black had an incredible entrance, an incredible entrance at WWE with the rising up and the timing of that music, the visual.
So cool.
It stood out. It was a shame that he is not there. They've tried to do his own entrance in AEW, and it's just like once you see something, it's hard to then upgrade that. It's hard to then top that. So, just from a presentation standpoint alone, and like Jimmy said, the risk of Cross getting lost. I will say right now, I think inevitably, I don't know if it's 6 months from now or a year from now or 2 years from now, Cross will be back in WWE, and if he gets back to WWE, I think they'll know better what to try to have him go out and do and not. And I think not will be the damn gladiator garb and Sans Scarlet. Because Scarlet was a huge part. She was a huge accessory to the entire presentation of him and the success of him in NXT.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, like you guys said, it's also like, what are they going to do with them? There's so many talented people that could be great. It's just a matter of, do they get the opportunity? But speaking of opportunities, Seth Rollins is going to have an opportunity to have a match with Ezekiel, because Ezekiel doesn't like that he just stomped Riddle for no good reason. By the way, he also sprayed Seth Rollins with ketchup the other week, so I don't know why he's the one wagging his finger saying he's upset. But they have a match. It's a 2-segment match. Zeke looks feisty, but Seth gets a second win against Zeke, which means this has to probably be done. But Jimmy, does Zeke work if we're not questioning whether or not he's Elias?
Right now, this second loss to Seth did not help that situation. Let's put it that way. We were talking about Kevin Owens earlier. Kevin Owens was helping elevate Zeke and that character and making this work, and everybody going, this is so cool. We know this is Elias, but boy, this is so much fun watching Kevin Owens going through. It has a different feel with Seth Rollins. And for me personally, the Zeke character doesn't work as well with Seth, despite the fact that I thought they had a pretty good match again. But it just, from a storytelling character standpoint, it didn't work as well as the Zeke Kevin Owens thing.
Yeah. I mean, Zeke, I'm obviously huge fan of him. He's not getting booed. He's not, the fans aren't rejecting him as like, oh, this is too generic of a babyface. But to like your question said, Jack, one of the things that has made Zeke is like the whole like everybody's in on it except for everybody is playing along except for Kevin Owens. Everybody's playing along. So we can't let up from that right now. They need to do more with all their production and camera tricks and pre-tapes and everything. They need to do more of, Zeke gets a win or even takes a loss, whatever, and then his opponent goes to the curtain and his opponent's encountered in Gorilla with Elias. And we need to do more of that to let the audience still feel like because that's the hook right now. Until Zeke gets more established, I mean, until he gets more of his own identity of besides just being Elias' little brother, we have to play in and to what has gotten us over to this point. So I do agree. Zeke is not as interesting if we're not going to continue to play the tricks and annoy the heels with the which again the fans latched onto. The fans all bought into it. And we're in on the joke. Which was kind of a magical kind of feeling. But I think that they do have to get back onto that for now until Ezekiel has his own identity that it can stand alone by himself.
It is kind of magic that worked, because if you had pitched me that idea, like, there's no way that's going to work, and it totally worked. But to your point, Justin, too, I feel like they could even they could even be obvious about it. Like if he wore a fake beard and it wasn't even that good, I feel like the way they have set this up, the fans would still like, oh yeah, that's Elias. We would go with it, even if it was done poorly, almost. Like I feel like they don't even need big production at this point. We're on board because it's making the heels upset. But
Mhm.
yeah, if it's just Elias being Elias, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. I kind of miss, or if it's just Ezekiel being Ezekiel, then I'm just like, oh, I kind of miss Elias. Elias was
Mhm.
cool. But
I think real quick too, just because I'm the tremendous fantasy booker that gets to do this after the fact. I think
Right.
I think it was in the news this week that I think Mick Foley signed a new WWE contract. I
Mhm.
mean, God, what a layup to have a Raw episode, at some point, or even if it's something where you build around the legends to have Ezekiel and Elias and Elrod, and they get to interact in one episode over 3 hours with Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love. Like, there's just so
Oh.
much there to play with of
Mm.
Ezekiel meeting Cactus Jack and him going, whoa, my brother, he plays guitar. He's a big fan of Dude Love. They both share that hippie kind of vibe. They were just talking to each other a minute, and then later we see. I mean, I don't know. There's little things. When I saw Mick Foley signed a contract again, I was like, "Oh, that could be fun."
I would love to see him as like Dude Love saying, "Can you believe people thought I was Cactus Jack too?"
Yeah, exactly, and have them sitting on the same couch, kind of like they did with Ezekiel and Elias the other week. It's just
Like that would be the most watched video on their YouTube that week.
Mhm.
It would be hilarious. It'd be great. So hopefully they get back to it because that was good stuff.
Yeah.
We then get one of these lots of stuff happens again, moments where the Street Profits are going to have a match with, or I should say Dawkins is going to have a match with Omos after they have an altercation backstage, or I guess they run into each other, not an altercation. But we get a singles match, and Dawkins technically beat Omos, which has to be the biggest win of his career, I would think, from a technical standpoint. But we do eventually then get a tag team match between everybody that ends up breaking down into a DQ after the Usos get involved. And there's actually almost looks like there might be some issues between Omos and the Usos at the end there, which I think is kind of exciting to see here. Justin, biggest win of Dawkins' career, right?
Yeah, technically. Cool to see Dawkins in a singles match for a bit. I don't know. This did come off as a lot of time filler, and the first DQ of the ref scene MVP after Montez has been a little annoying mosquito. That was fun. Okay, so now we turn in a tag match. Now MVP, who's in his $5,000 suit's got arrested. That's fun. That was a cool little thing, right? I don't agree with him that that's how the Usos interfere later, and then because in the crowd really, I mean, there was a reaction. There was a reaction, but I felt it was just a felt cheated reaction, and I don't know what it did to advance anything. It just at the end of the day, when I look back at the 20 minutes that just passed, I'm like, oh, this felt like a huge waste.
Yeah, and this was, and Jimmy, I want to get your thoughts on this because I guess what the DQ, what bothered me about it is, to be fair, MVP is, if you pin MVP, I think it doesn't hurt anybody at this point either. Right. So I feel like they had an out in this situation.
No, they absolutely did, and to have a DQ finish followed by a DQ finish, it just didn't work. And sometimes the fan reaction is what tells the story and tells you whether it worked or not. And it wasn't a fan reaction, especially after the second DQ. After the second DQ, it wasn't they were upset that, oh my goodness, I can't believe it, whatever happened. It was a, oh, you got to be kidding me kind of reaction from the crowd. That's not the kind of reaction you want. You want them to either get upset with what happened and get angry with the outcome, or you want them to be happy about what they saw and somebody getting their butt kicked that they wanted to see win. But the reaction told the story for me in that nobody was happy because they didn't like the outcome the way it came off.
I think too, you telegraph it so much when you have the person on the outside at commentary, especially the Usos, who are pretty clearly the kind of guys that get involved in matches. So when you go through this, like, I think it would have been fine if this was a quick, 5-minute thing and they get to it. You're like, okay, I see what's happening. But yeah, multiple segments, changes to the matchup. And then again, an MVP who has already said he's not ready, already said he's not wearing his outfit, and also not someone that you necessarily need to protect in any way. I think you had it very easy. Street Profits pin him, bing, bang, boom. They look great. You can put that on the back. I don't know. It just felt very,
yeah. No,
But
agreed.
I like Omos looking strong though. Omos still doing his thing. We get a quick promo from the Miz that basically leads into what's going on later tonight. But the big one here, Justin, we get Veer coming out, and he has something to say. Boo. And then he giggles. Are you ready for the next round, the next chapter in the story of Veer?
I don't know. I mean, he seemed like a top priority project for how long there, and then just I don't know. I don't know why his segments all of a sudden we stopped seeing him have matches. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Did he finish his Rey Mysterio stuff, or did they just move on? Like, was there a blow off of any kind? Or?
I mean, I feel like I can't remember because I know that he attacked him to the point where they got like stretchered off at one point. But then I feel like that we had like a match later, a few weeks later. I don't know, and that tells you that I can't. We do the show every Monday, and I can't tell you where he left off.
Yeah, and that's telling, and that's very telling.
Speaking of, when was the last time the Mysterios had a rivalry where it wasn't someone picking on Dom? That being the case of this story. I feel like every rivalry is I'm going to pick on Dom, and then Ray has to come in and save the day. But
that's more. Hey, that could be part of the story that might be going on in the future.
Mm-hmm. But it was very not a good look for Veer. I hope I'm wrong. I was gonna wonder. I don't know if you guys know, but like the paint on his forehead, is it matte? I wonder if there's like a meaning to like how much white is on there versus how much, like, because this time it was just lines, but in the past he's on like full, like it's like one big block. I don't know if there's like a meaning behind that, but maybe
not explained. So
if his booking's been this inconsistent, I don't know how much thought's behind what's.
I think the lines you're talking about actually spell out boo.
Boo.
Look at it
boo. That was not a vote of confidence kind of background moment there. We get a Theory, I guess, big chunk of time. He comes out and says he's going to be the champ at SummerSlam, and that it doesn't matter if he loses the U.S. title match because he could still get the world title afterwards, which I was not a fan of hearing that. He said he doesn't even blame Ziggler for what he did, which kind of felt like they made that seem like not a big deal also. But eventually AJ comes out and they talk to each other, and they have a match, and this one ends with Ziggler hitting a super kick and causing Theory to get the count-out loss. AJ wins and attacks Theory before staring down Ziggler. This is another one, Justin. It felt like there was so much stuff going on, and it was like promo, video package, someone coming out, promo, someone else coming out, match. I felt like this didn't feel like the smoothest flow of the night.
No, if it wasn't smooth to us, imagine what it was like to a live audience trying to follow along. Yeah, I mean, this again, it's another part of the struggle of the 3 hours of formatting things and timing things up against breaks and what's going to hold the audience. Because the promo between AJ and Theory was very, very engaging. Theory, where were you when you're my age, and Styles speaking for what the locker room thinks about Theory, and that was a really good promo. But yeah, it was kind of buried in exhaustion, quite frankly. The match was entertaining. And then here's my big. I have less of a complaint now after I just saw how the segment played out. But I will say, when we ended the segment, when we ended this podcast last week, the top story was Dolph Ziggler. Surprise, Dolph Ziggler, and then he's back to being a babyface. We assume he's putting Theory in his place. And that lead was totally buried tonight. They not address or utter Dolph Ziggler's words or his name or show any video of him until the third hour, to the point where I wrote down I forgot that Dolph Ziggler was supposed to be a big part of the show. Then he does more of the same, where he just attacks Theory. It's still the whole thing is the question. So I mean, I guess that was the idea, is we're supposed to still just be asking questions, but that was just peculiar to me. That especially when you put it in context of, we had even said last week, let's start off Raw next week hot. Let's have Dolph Ziggler come out. You have my attention. And we started with a public service announcement.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I went into this week thinking that Ziggler could be someone who might be a feisty, fall period contender for the title or something, or maybe be the guy that works with Theory to kind of, as Theory builds up a little bit more. But after this, I was like, oh, he's kind of just here. I didn't leave this feeling like, man, this is a cool, crazy thing. It was just like, oh yeah, he's still here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like Justin said, I would have loved to have seen that kick off the show, but what you could have kicked off the show tonight with was that promo segment with Theory and AJ. Have that lead into the match being the first match of the night, and with Dolph coming out there. You know, and then it kind of ties into what the last thing we saw, you know, last week on Raw, which we said, oh, good. And then I do like the fact that he hasn't, you know, I'm going back on my, from what I said last week. I wanted him to come out and explain why he did what he did. But the fact that he came out and did it again this week, it's kind of like playing along. It's making you go, why is he constantly taking out Theory? What is the reasoning behind this? I want to hear what it is eventually. But, you know, now I'm anxious to hear it. Maybe we didn't have to hear it tonight. Maybe we could prolong it a little bit more. But again, placement in the show. If this would have happened at the beginning of the show, I think it would have had a bigger impact.
So this is, I guess, crossing shows, but something that bothered me about it was Theory was on SmackDown and didn't even bring it up. And then, okay, whatever, it's a different show. We'll pretend it's a different universe. But then, like I said in this promo, maybe I'm old school, but it bothered me that he was like, it doesn't matter if I lose the U.S. title match. And I just don't blame Ziggler for attacking me because I got everything. It made it sound like, so then why do I care? If you don't care, why do I care? Because it happened to you. You're in it. And if you're not interested, I can't imagine someone being like, yeah, I'm going to play for the, American Football Conference Championship. If I win that, I'm going to go to the Super Bowl, but I don't care if I win. Like, well, okay. I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I did like the AJ Styles Theory portion of it, but that part I was like, I don't know. I didn't know where he was getting with that.
No, but like you said, the wording of that promo was yeah. Like you said, if he didn't care, then why should I care? I get he's trying to play it off like, you know what, it doesn't bother me because I have, but still,
right. So
you should be upset about it.
So we got a few super chats here we want to get through. We got Package 101 saying, I think the show is missing having a title. That's a problem with a double champion. Also, Theory yelling at the crowd, telling not to say what was hilarious. I do agree. I like his interaction with the crowd there. Justin, do you think that this episode would have been better had someone been wearing the championship?
Well, I mean, I always think having a title holder is good to have around, but it's also a matter of what does that title mean? If the title holders are good, but it's the answer to that is not let's just have more title holders and what title means what, like I'm okay if the world champion is going to predominantly be a SmackDown participant if that means that the United States champion is elevated on Raw. I think that's a great way to go about it. And then if the world champion then wants to then move over and is more present on Raw for a time period, if the Intercontinental over in SmackDown gets out, I mean, that to me is the way this should work. I don't think more titles is more shiny gold is not the answer. No,
you're absolutely right, because there was a time when Bruno was the WWF champion, the Intercontinental Championship was, or even Bob Backlund was the WWF champion. The Intercontinental Champion was the workhorse champion. That was the guy who showed up more on television, who showed up at house shows and really, or live events as they're called now. And again, to Justin's point, that's what I was hoping was going to happen when they separated and put the U.S. title on Raw and the IC title on SmackDown, that those would be the primary championships for those shows. But especially when they unified the two championships, the Universal and the World Heavyweight.
So, yeah, it comes down to presentation, I think, in general. But we also got another comment from the Tornado, Anthony Y, saying, on that Theory kid, ask Justin to ask Mark and Bully on my theory. Tony from Kansas gave his theory on a possible theory, and Heyman come SummerSlam.
I think he's trying to say that maybe he's suggested to the guys on Busted Open about maybe like an idea of Heyman with Theory at SummerSlam, like helping Theory cash in. Maybe, but it really doesn't make sense. Like, Theory's already got the endorsement of Vince McMahon. Why does and he can talk? Why does he need Paul Heyman right now. If you know, like I mean, like if anything, I think the more realistic thing would be maybe Theory tries to. He keeps saying and calling a shot that he's going to pick up the remains. Maybe he tries to cash in on a Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar, and before he can even actually get the cash in, before the ref can actually officially ring the bell, Ziggler pops up out of nowhere and super kicks him again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that seems to be more in line with where they're going right now. It seems like that we are not going to be having a Theory as world champion just yet. He's got some business to deal with Dolph Ziggler. And yeah, again, and let's remember too, Heyman with Brock worked because he legit was part of Brock's circle. When Brock took his hiatus to UFC, you could watch a UFC pay-per-view and they show, the fighter entering the arena earlier in the day. Heyman was part of that crew entering the arena. Heyman with Punk worked because Heyman was a true advocate for CM Punk behind the scenes, and there's a big story there politically of what went on. Heyman with Reigns worked. That surprised me because Heyman has a history with Reigns' family, but that's a little deeper, a little more of a deep cut. They've made Reigns and Heyman work. They've tried to pair Heyman with other guys, Ryback, Cesaro, Curtis Axel, and it just didn't. And I think Paul Heyman is such a special. I think the audience could see through what was real, what's not, and I feel like Theory, having already been legitimately endorsed by Vince McMahon, having WrestleMania moments with Vince McMahon already, I feel like that would look way too manufactured, trying to just strap. Why would Roman Reigns have been the champion for 600 and something days, or whatever the damn record is? Why the hell would Paul Heyman abandon that?
Yeah, Paul Heyman as a character doesn't try to get on the low stock hoping it goes up. He's someone that's always on the front runner. He's the guy that's like, if he was a pro football manager, he'd be managing Tom Brady right now because he's the guy. He wouldn't be like, oh, there's a guy coming out of college that's really good. That's not who he does. So that's not what he is. So if he ever left Roman, it would be because there's another monster dominant person that's going to be on top of the world already. Not that they could be on top of the world.
Right. And once upon a time, he did go for the stock. When he came out, when Brock Lesnar made his debut out of nowhere, nobody, unless you watched OVW, nobody knew who Brock Lesnar was. Right. But that was a different Paul Heyman as well. 20 years later, he's a different character. You're right. Now the character that he is, he only straps himself to the horse that's been in the winning circle.
Right. Absolutely.
He doesn't go to, you're right, the guy up and coming. Why would he? It doesn't fit.
Yeah. And again, to the main point too, is like you said, Theory right now is a talker and a very good talker. So he doesn't need that mouthpiece with him right now.
Which Brock did.
Yes, absolutely did. Which was where I was technically going to go, boy, man, we're on the same wavelength tonight, you and I, JL.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like you guys on the same page. That's a dangerous combo. But we have a few others I want to knock out real quick. Allison Tuckwab in the chat says, I thought they were supposed to drop PG. And on top of that, Nelson Moreno in the chat says, what happened to TV 14 rating? Intro showed PG. I believe they went back on that report, or there was a report and then they changed their mind or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim.
No. I was just going to say Justin would know better, but my understanding is that they're talking about it, but it hasn't been confirmed yet.
Right. Andrew Zarian of the Matt Men podcast, who is usually pretty on the nose when he decides to tweet things and say things. He had said that was the plan that started this Monday to be TVPG, and then he did go back and say, "Okay, got it wrong here. It's being discussed. They want to do it, but there's no date set in place." And and then even further, the belief is it might go to TV 14, which all that does is just it expands the goalpost a little bit. They don't have to. They could say a few more words selectively, let the language be a little more
risque.
But if people think that this is going to be the return of Yamaguchi-san, choppy pee pee, if you got that one. No, that's not where we're going here. They still are going to be a product that's going to position themselves to the mainstream as best as possible. It just might be a little more okay. Let's speak a language that's just a little bit more authentic. And look, times change. You can turn on NBC and watch a drama at 10 p.m. on NBC and hear words you used to never ever be able to hear unless you were on HBO or pay-per-view or something. I mean, like just the standards change. What was rated R in 1985 now is nowhere near. So I think that's all WWE is kind of getting back to, is they just need to maybe just give themselves a little wiggle room for presentation. But if anybody's expecting to some drastic revert back to 25 years ago, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I would say WWE, they're not known for making big drastic changes. Even when they have the McMahons come out and they say we're going to make a big drastic change, it doesn't really mean there's going to be a big drastic change. Or hey, Heyman and Bischoff are in charge now. Not really a big drastic change.
No.
So yeah, probably would not be a big deal. We also get Nelson following up with the question, which rating did the Attitude Era have? I actually don't even remember what the rating was back in the Attitude Era.
Was it TV 14?
I want to assume so, because again,
I think you're right.
They were doing a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah, crotch chops and suck it and all that stuff. I think it was TV 14.
But again, remember, what was the top 2 biggest marketing brands in entertainment in 1998? You're talking about WWE, WWF, and South Park. And then beyond that, you had then lower to that, you had Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV, top movies in the box office, Austin Power. Like, it was just a different where what was in was different at the time. And oh, by the way, WWE was a private mom and pop company. There were no investors to answer to. There was no record profit margins being reported that there are now. So it's just a different ball game.
We also have one more I want to get to. That's a really nice one. Ryan Ramirez says, love the show, guys. You all saved my life by bringing light and laughter. I'm going through so much. Thanks for being like a second family, Wrestling Inc. Ryan, thank you so much for the kind words. And thank you for being a part of our lives and being a part of the show. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it, Ryan, and glad you're laughing, because we're laughing too. We're having a blast doing this. Trust me.
Good luck to whatever it is you're going through. And
yes.
Keep watching us if that's what does it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, tough transition, because now we're going to the 6-woman tag team match. So buckle up. Here we go. We're going into Dana Brooke, Asuka, and Bliss versus Doudrop, Nikki ASH, and Tamina. And Justin, I'm going to tell you why this was the most disappointing part of the show for me. Because at first, I loved the idea of this 6-woman tag team match, because I was like, this is great. You're getting all these women on TV. They're having a match. They're doing something. You're building that women's mid-card. And then the 24/7 shenanigans happen. And then we get the pin, and we get the pin, 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 we get the pin. And then the match is basically over. Asuka gets to win. I don't know why the match wasn't over when they were pinning each other in the middle of the match between the actual contestants. But I was actually thinking to myself, maybe the 24/7 title is done after this. But this was the most depressing, most disappointing part, because I thought, oh, we're building up a mid card, but really it was just another 24/7 title thing that literally went nowhere, because we ended up in the exact same spot we started.
This the lowest point of the entire episode. Show me a video package of something else. Give Theory and Styles 5 more minutes. Anything else would have probably better. Not to slight those ladies being seen, but this was not good.
No. And in the infamous words, I believe it's JR who said, nothing more to be said at it. No, that was Gordon Soley, wasn't it? Gordon Soley, nothing more to be said at this time. I mean, let's put it this way. What we saw there should not have been seen, at least in that match. It made the 6 women in that match feel insignificant. A backdrop to the 24/7 championship, which is a ha-ha gaga championship, which should be presented more on main event or something like that. But anyways, it just did nothing for me.
And again, it ended back right where we started. If it was, look, however we feel about 24/7 championship, if like Doudrop ended with it, I'd go, okay, well, maybe it's a new era. Maybe they're going to do something different. Who knows? Whatever. But it was like, oh, this all really just left us with the exact same situation.
Yeah. And to your point, Jack, it's again, all these pins are happening in the middle of a 6-person tag match, 6-woman tag match.
Yeah, so
all the complaints I have about elsewhere with the refereeing and rules, everything just piled up in this match right there.
Yeah, it was, and the crowd, you could not hear them. I was gonna say you could hear them, but you could not. This was, I felt like this is the most silent I've heard a crowd in a very long time.
Yeah.
That's when you saw 8,000 people go to the bathroom all at once.
Like I said earlier, live TV, you can't unsee.
Yes.
Yeah.
What you saw.
So from that, like I said, there's not really much more to say. We get to the main event of the evening. Miz TV, Logan Paul, Miz calls him out. The egos collide. Miz calls Logan Paul a rookie and denies the challenge. But when Logan Paul says you have small balls, he goes, "Oh, well, in that case, I'll fight you. How dare you say I have small balls?" Then Ciampa, they attack afterwards, but Logan Paul fights him off. Then we get an actual interviewer in the ring to ask a question, which I thought was pretty nice, except the Miz just takes the microphone away anyways, and that's that. But he does cut a pretty heated promo afterwards. I thought that was pretty cool at the end. Jimmy, I'll let you start with this. I get why this was at the end. Felt like it didn't really pop hard for me here either.
No, it's not. Again, and I hate to say it, but Logan Paul is not someone in my wheelhouse. So I don't gravitate towards him. And he did nothing tonight. He said nothing tonight to make me want to get invested in him. Yes, at WrestleMania for his debut match or when he tagged with The Miz, he did pretty good. You know what? I will give him that. But at the same time, he did nothing tonight, either with his promo work or any of his physicality that made me want to see him at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I was actually kind of on board with it until it got to the tiny balls part, and then it felt very like, okay, we're back to this. But Justin,
it felt forced so we could unveil a new T-shirt.
Yes.
Here's where your TV 14 comes into play. We're gonna have a shirt that says "Hi, I have massive balls," and you'll have a crop of 14 to 17-year-old kids who think that'll be very funny to have a shirt that says that.
Yeah, and for someone here who is a big fan, I love blueberries. After tonight, I'm like rethinking things.
Every time you have a blueberry now, Jimmy, I want you to think about what.
All I'm going to be thinking about the Mrs. Balls.
This segment was what it was. I mean, you got to have Logan Paul on. You're promoting this match. It's going to happen. But yeah, it wasn't a great ending in terms of like it didn't have a big wow ending. I will compliment Logan Paul though. To this point again, really good camera awareness, a good pacing of his promo. Didn't rush it. Had delivered the lines. He'd be heard. He did the thing where he was going through what he's been told. You know, he was told he couldn't build a social media career. So he would look at the Miz, say what he was told he couldn't do, and then he turned to the camera and said, "Here's what I did." And then, I couldn't last and go 8 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. And then turn to you don't even see that on the regular from the full-time talent. So I mean, like little things like that, I'll compliment him. He looks very comfortable out there. And he delivers the lines. It's just the overall, and then the Ciampa getting involved, but then we have to like do the balls T-shirt thing, and then the interview after the fact, Jack. It was just a sloppy, weird formatted thing to end the show. It was not like if they would have had Miz tries to attack Paul and Logan bust out one big move. Don't give it all away. Make people tune into SummerSlam to see him in a singles match where he's not protected, like Miz said he was in a tag team. Deliver one big, deliver like whatever. End with Logan and in the big with a big move, like okay, in there. But all the other gaga that happened just kind of it didn't fit for the thing to go off the air. Put it as a crossover earlier in the show. But I go back to what I said earlier in response to who knows. Some USA executives said we want the Miz and Logan Paul. We want that to be the lead into Miz and Mrs. That very well. It's a very real possibility that happened. And so WWE had to just do what they were asked to do. That's very possible.
Exactly. And as I said earlier in the show, the crowd tells you exactly what you want to know. There were a few people kind of cheering Logan Paul, but he wasn't really that over as a babyface, was he?
He's a natural heel. He's a natural heel.
It just didn't resonate even with the live audience, even those that maybe are not very familiar with him. Even they didn't sound like they were too into his babyface role, for lack of a better term. So the crowd tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, and I think that I guess overall thoughts is since we kind of wrap this up, I felt like this whole episode felt very like they were trying to overstuff every little thing, and it just made it not feel like it flowed. Because everything just felt so like clunky. I don't know, the whole thing kind of came off clunky.
Well, into that, Jack, that might be a result of this being an unprecedented year where SummerSlam is a month earlier, and it's 4 weeks after Money in the Bank. So like maybe it does feel like they're having to cram stuff in. I mean, look, Edge is probably going to have a SummerSlam match, and there's going to be 5 days to build to it when it's actually announced.
Right.
You know, that's kind of wild to think, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's I hate saying, you know, because as you mentioned before, you know, there's so much that goes on, so I hate saying negative things. I don't know why they were put the way they were, but yeah, I just felt like this whole time I was like this. I feel like Theory's opening promo was the perfect example of it. Of I'm going to talk, go look at the screen, I'm back at the screen, as opposed to just like let's just get through this in a nice easy way. But I don't know, wasn't my favorite episode of Raw, but we got through it. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up, fellas?
No, just looking forward to seeing what happens next week. The go home show to SummerSlam. I'm kind of feeling we're going to get a lot more to talk about next week. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we will, Jack. Justin's going to be on a beach somewhere enjoying.
I'll be sipping an absolute LaBar. Tuning in, listening to you guys. Maybe I'll send a super chat.
There you go. Margarita in Margaritaville.
If you could send through a super chat stating your, I'll tell you who the sponsor is. If you could just tell me what you would say for the sponsor, and then I can.
Nice.
I will be sitting on a beach having an absolute LaBar, eating some HelloFresh meals, and I'll take a Blue Chew. How about that?
There you go.
Sounds like a fun night.
Right.
But that does it for us. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for the NXT after show, and Wednesday for the after Dynamite show, and Friday for the after SmackDown and Rampage show. And I don't know if they're doing if we have a after Ring of Honor show this weekend, but I don't know. I'm sure they'll cover it in some way. It's wrestling. We cover everything. That does it for us. Triple J, I think we're signing off.
Ain't we great?
Yes.